It's Monday, December 7th, 2009, and it's got to be 4:20 somewhere in the world. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville. Produced and distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C., this is your NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about our show at our website, stash.norml.org, and continue the education and conversation on our blog as well. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. The podcasting and blogging technology for the NORML Daily Audio Stash is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. For your professional web design needs, visit redaphid.com. Good day, Stashers, and welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here. Want to remind you that we are taking nominations for the 2009 Stashy Awards in various categories, including things like the most tragic marijuana story of the year or the best marijuana story of the year. One of the categories, of course, is the stupid stoner story of the year, and sometimes I get a little bit of heat on this. People say that I shouldn't be perpetuating these stereotypes or calling people stupid or stoners or whatever, but I always like to say that I'm presenting those stories partially as entertainment and partially to be a negative example, to show people what not to do and to call out the people that make the rest of us look bad. I hope everyone understands that I'm not trying to denigrate these people necessarily, as I am trying to teach them a lesson and trying to help the rest of us learn from their mistakes. So no offense intended. Anyway, it's posted to the top of stash.norml.org, and you can leave your nominations in the comments section. We'll have voting over the last couple of weeks of this year, starting on the weekend, 19th of December. Now, speaking of stupid, I've got a story up on stash.norml.org about a prisoner in Britain who was able to fool the guards in his prison to let him grow a pot plant in his cell. He told them it was a tomato plant. So check that out. It's always nice to have a stupid law enforcement story every now and then. Also, for our holiday schedule coming up here for the Stash, want to let people know there will be no Daily Audio Stash podcasts on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, nor will there be any on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. However, on New Year's Eve, we are going to have a 3-hour special NORML show live running from midnight East Coast time to midnight West Coast time, coming to you from Oregon NORML's world-famous Cannabis Cafe. We're going to have call-ins from NORML chapters all across the country during their last hour of 2009. So we'll be talking to folks in Philadelphia, New York, Waco, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, Kansas City, Missouri, Denver, Colorado, Salt Lake City, Boise, Idaho, Portland, Oregon, LA, San Francisco. We're going to go coast to coast with New Year's on NORML Show Live Thursday, December 31st. Check it out at live.norml.org. Also, speaking of NORML Show Live, we are so happy to announce our new home at Oregon NORML's Cannabis Cafe. We are broadcasting in front of a live audience every Saturday night, except we will not be there this Saturday night, as it is the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards. We'll talk about that more in the calendar section. We'll be back on the 19th for a live broadcast out of the Cannabis Cafe. But then on the 26th and on January 2nd, there will not be episodes of NORML Show Live, again, because of the holidays. So check out all these schedules at live.norml.org. Now, coming up on your Daily Audio Stash podcast, we'll begin with your cannabis community calendar, and then we take a look at your hemp headlines, including a great story in Alternate that features women and their role in ending prohibition, with a couple of looks at NORML women in particular that we'll detail in the news story. We have a new study that analyzes 6 studies that looked at multiple sclerosis and cannabis therapies. 5 out of 6 of those studies say that cannabis is an effective medicine for combating the spasticity of multiple sclerosis. And another look at boycotting PayPal, the financial service on the internet that has dropped California NORML and celebstoner.com for accepting advertising from legal medical marijuana dispensaries and clinics in California. For our daily Toker Tunes are brought to you today by Planet Fantastic and my good friend Cannabis Carey. The song is some British pop from a group called Sunshine Variety Club, and it's called Smoker's Paradise. And then continuing our look back at 2009, we're going to bring you one of our cannabis conversations from February of 2009, right after the Michael Phelps bong smoking photo surfaced. We'll talk to Alan St. Pierre, the executive director of NORML, and remember his reactions when that story broke. All that and more coming up on your NORML Daily Audio Stash.
There is a peaceful solution called a peace revolution. And now let's take back America.
Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Like millions of freedom-loving Americans, I'm a marijuana smoker, and I don't think that should be any of the government's business. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana. The next time you light up, take the time to let your elected officials know how you feel. It's time we legalize marijuana and stop treating marijuana smokers like criminals. For more information on how you can help legalize marijuana, please contact NORML at NORML.org.
Roll me something fat and long, or pack me a bowl, or fill me a bong. It only comes twice a day, but I don't care. It's 4:20 somewhere.
It's time for your Cannabis Community Calendar, available online at normal.org/calendar. To get your events added to the calendar, send me an email with the subject calendar request to stash@normal.org. On Tuesday, December 8th, Joplin NORML in Joplin, Missouri will be having their monthly meeting at Blackthorn Pizza and Pub. On Wednesday, December 9th, Ohio NORML has its open meeting online via Pal Talk. And then coming up this weekend on Saturday, December 12th, Houghton Lake, Michigan will have the THCF clinic visiting the East Bay Lodge for screenings and informational seminars for patients, caregivers, and growers. For information, call Randy at 989-366-5910. Also on Saturday, December 12th, the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards take place at the Portland Events Center in Portland, Oregon. For more details, check out ornorml.org. Also on Saturday, Macomb County NORML in Michigan will be holding their holiday meeting, and NORML of Waco in Waco, Texas will be holding their monthly meeting, and NORML Show Live goes on the air at live.normal.org. Finally, on Sunday, December 13th, Macomb Oakland Compassion Club in Michigan are having their party. You must be a medical marijuana card holder to attend. For more information, check out www.thc4u.com. That's THC, the number 4, the letter U.com. And for more information on all of these events, including clickable maps, contact information, websites, email addresses, phone numbers, and more, check out the NORML Cannabis Community Calendar at norml.org/calendar.
From Washington, D.C., the belly of the anti-marijuana beast. Season's greetings from NORML staff and the board of directors. To you and yours. This is Alan St. Pierre, executive director of NORML and the NORML Foundation. And I sincerely hope your holidays are both safe and hemp-filled.
Hi, this is NORML founder and legal counsel Keith Stropp, wishing you a happy holiday from NORML. Let's use this time with family and friends to rededicate ourselves to ending marijuana prohibition and stopping the arrest of responsible marijuana smokers. Happy holidays.
Now it's time to take a look at the latest stories about marijuana from news organizations across America and around the world in our normal daily audio stash, Hemp Headlines. NORML women featured as the secret to legalization. From alternate.org. Daniela Perdomo has written a fantastic piece on Alternate entitled The Secret to Legal Marijuana? Women, featuring a look at some of our favorite NORML women. In 2005, only 32% of polled women told Gallup they approved legalizing pot, but this year 44% of them were for it, compared to 45% of men. In effect, women have narrowed what had been a 12-point gender gap. Women are also smoking more weed. The most recent national survey on drug use and health shows that current marijuana use increased from 3.8 to 4.5% among women, while there was no significant statistical change for men. Cheryl Schumann, a 49-year-old optician in Los Angeles, would agree. Up until she started using cannabis therapy to treat her cancer, she was on a daily regimen of 27 prescription drugs, attached to a mobile intravenous morphine pump, and undergoing constant CAT and MRI scans. In 2006, her doctors told her she'd be dead by the end of that year. This year, Schumann became the founding director of Beverly Hills National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws chapter, and she hopes to attract women to the cause. Enter Jessica Corey, a pro-life Republican from Denver. A mother of two girls aged 2 and 4, this 30-year-old newly minted lawyer is widely hailed as a rising star in Colorado politics. Mothers like Corey are drawn to marijuana regulation as part of a larger appeal that encourages the use of harm reduction to more pragmatically deal with substance abuse. This year, there was a 37% increase in teens who said pot is easier to buy than cigarettes, beer, or prescription drugs. Nearly 1/4 said they can get weed within the hour. Those stats matter to women. In light of this, children and family will be included in the mission statement of the Women's Alliance, a group NORML will launch next year. The coordinator, Sabrina Fendrick, plans to include mention of how current marijuana policy undermines the American family and sends mixed messages to young people. Be sure to click over and read the entire article, as it also spotlights important female allies like Valerie Corral of Wham!, Mickey Norris from the West Coast Leaf, and Debbie Goldsberry from the Berkeley Patients Group, who have all generously donated their time and expertise to this podcast and numerous NORML conferences. And my newest acquaintance, Deborah Small from Break the Chains in New York, who presented on my panel at the DPA Reform Conference last month. I agree with Perdomo. Women will be the key to ending adult marijuana prohibition, just as women were key to ending liquor prohibition. Ladies, won't you join us? NORML is always looking for accomplished and confident women to join and lead chapters at the grassroots level all across the country. Send me an email at stash@norml.org, and I can put you in touch with Sabrina and the forthcoming NORML Women's Alliance as well. 5 of 6 scientific trials show medical marijuana helps multiple sclerosis patients. Los Angeles, California, from UPI. Marijuana may reduce spasticity, involuntary muscle contractions, in multiple sclerosis patients, U.S. researchers said. The systematic review of 6 randomized controlled trials published in the journal Neurology found 5 of the trials reported a reduction in spasticity and an improvement in mobility. Researchers Shaheen Lakan and Marie Rowland of the Global Neuroscience Initiative Foundation in Los Angeles said they looked for trials evaluating 2 marijuana extracts, delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, and cannabidiol, or CBD. Quote, "We found evidence that combined THC and CBD extracts may provide therapeutic benefit for MS spasticity symptoms," Lakan said in a statement. The therapeutic potential of cannabinoids in MS is comprehensive and should be given considerable attention, end quote. The researchers said reported incidence of marijuana side effects, such as intoxication, varied greatly depending on the amount of marijuana needed to effectively limit spasticity. However, the researchers noted side effects were also seen in the placebo groups. I always find it amusing when marijuana's euphoric effect is noted as a side effect. Most of the drugs doctors will prescribe for spasticity will cause side effects like, quote, drowsiness, dizziness, weakness, malaise, fatigue, and diarrhea, end quote. That's dantrolene. Or, quote, weakness, hypotension, ataxia, discoordination, sedation, depression, and memory impairment, and risk of addiction, end quote. Those would be benzodiazepines. Or, quote, sedation, hypotension, dry mouth, dizziness, renal impairment, and psychosis, end quote. Those would be imidazolines. Or, quote, vertigo, urinary frequency, muscle weakness, drowsiness, confusion, headache, nausea, seizures, constipation, dyspnea, impaired vision, severe fatigue, urticaria, and edema. That would be the drug baclofen. Also, don't forget, quote, because of the potential for some of these drugs to cause hepatotoxicity, aka liver failure, regular monitoring of hepatic function is required, end quote. And yet, we're supposed to be concerned about munchies, giggling, and appreciation of jazz as a potential side effect from medical cannabis use? Boycotting PayPal for anti-medical marijuana bias. If you've been following the stash, you know about California NORML and now CelebStoner's websites being dropped by PayPal for accepting advertisement income from medical marijuana referral clinics. I covered the topic on last night's NORML Show Live with Steve Bloom from CelebStoner. Since then, I've received this email. I believe in true freedom, as I believe you do as well. Correct me if I am wrong. I don't know you personally, but I'm assuming because of the way you talk on the show. When I mentioned PayPal having the right to refuse service to businesses like NORML and CelebStoner, the argument I got back was that they are hypocrites because there are other bad businesses that use PayPal. Now, if everyday citizens should have the right to their freedoms, shouldn't private companies, no matter how big they are, have the right to their freedoms as well? Isn't it a bit hypocritical to want freedoms for some people but not for other people? Yeah, it might have hurt his business, but it's like being mad for getting arrested for not paying taxes. You know the rules. At least you should. You did click the little button that said, I read and agree to the terms of service, or you wouldn't have gotten the account. Yet you decided to break them anyway. Which is fine. You can if you decided to. But what really bothered me was telling people to boycott because you decided to break the rules. You broke the rules, not them. It's like telling people to boycott 7-Eleven because they wouldn't let you rob them, or someone telling people to boycott the Oregon NORML Cannabis Cafe because they didn't have a medical marijuana card and you guys wouldn't let them in. It's just silly. I'm sure NORML doesn't like it when people tell them what to do, just as I believe PayPal doesn't like it when people tell them what to do. You can be mad and say you're pissed, you lost money or time or whatever, but to use your influential position, however big or little it would be, to tell people to boycott a company because you broke the rules seems wrong to me, especially for a company that advocates freedoms the way NORML does. Well, first of all, let's look at the actual terms of service that PayPal claims the websites violated. You may not use PayPal service for activities that 1. Violate any law, statute, ordinance, or regulation, or 2. Relate to sales of A. Narcotics, steroids, certain controlled substances, or other products that present a risk to consumer safety, B. Drug paraphernalia, or C. Items that encourage, promote, facilitate, or instruct others to engage in illegal activity. If California NORML and CelebStoner were taking ads from Bobby's Bong Bungalow, then PayPal has an argument. But the ads in question were for doctors who provide examinations and recommendations for medical marijuana. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Conant v. Walters that doctors had a First Amendment right to recommend medical marijuana, even though they cannot prescribe it, even though marijuana is federally illegal. These clinics are not in violation of point number 1. Recommending medical marijuana is not against any law, even in non-medical marijuana states. They do not violate point 2A, as the clinics do not sell any controlled substances. They do not violate point 2B, as they do not sell drug paraphernalia. The only shred of an argument they have is in point 2C. If you accept that taking money from a legal doctor who makes a legal recommendation to a patient to use marijuana in a state where the patient is legally allowed to do so and that patient does, you have then somehow encouraged, promoted, facilitated, or instructed that patient to engage in a federally illegal activity. PayPal has dropped these websites because they don't like subsidizing doctors who recommend medical marijuana because patients might smoke it and the feds say it's illegal. This is PayPal making a business decision to discriminate against medical marijuana. Now, to your points about freedoms for all. Yes, certainly. Companies deserve some consideration of rights. PayPal doesn't have to do business with anyone. And maybe they have a valid point about their terms of service. There's no law saying they have to accept medical marijuana, and given the federal-state dichotomy on the issue, they're well within their rights. However, freedoms also extend to consumers, who can certainly use their First Amendment rights to bitch about PayPal's terms of service. Those consumers can peaceably assemble to try to convince others that PayPal is in the wrong. They can use freedom of the press to organize their own terms of consumption that has a "we boycott businesses that don't accommodate the legality of medical marijuana in 13 states" point. Just because a company puts something in its terms of service doesn't make it right. Southern lunch counters in the 1950s used to have perfectly legal terms of service that were horrendously immoral too.
Ever wonder how often to change your bong water? The most effective method for baking pot brownies? The best destinations for a ganja getaway? How to hide herb in your car? Whether to grow your own? How precisely to legalize it? Or how something as wonderful as marijuana ever got to be illegal in the first place? Finally, you can find all these answers and much more in the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook, featuring 420 things to do when you're stoned. Since 1974, High Times Magazine has covered marijuana in all its aspects and wonders, from cultivation to legalization to the herb's enduring and exalted place in popular culture. Packed with inside information, the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook rolls all of this collected wisdom together into a single indispensable ganja guide, including an entertaining look at marijuana's history, profiles of herb-friendly travel destinations and festivals, favorite potluck recipes from the High Times staff, smoking skills, advocacy and activism, essential marijuana movies and songs, profiles of famous cannabis strains, comprehensive growing information, celebrity endorsements, and much more. This is truly, finally, the ultimate guide to green living.
It's time for your Daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420-friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Our pod-safe music is donated by freedom-loving musicians who support our goal of ending adult marijuana prohibition. Today we bring you tunes for Roots Monday, our celebration of the music that evolved into the popular modern music of today. We pick the best of blues, country, folk, and jazz with a 420 feel and serve it up for you every Monday. Brought to you by PlanetFantastic.com and Bella Blue Tie-Dye Fashions. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on the Daily Audio Stash, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now, here's some great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
Thanks, Russ. I thought we needed a bit of sunshine today here in December. This isn't the first time that the Sunshine Variety Club has stopped by the stash to lay down a track. The UK band brought us Green Bong Mix back in April of 2008. Today's toker-friendly tune is called Smoker's Paradise, and they ease us into the week with few lyrics, a nice slide guitar riff, and a mix between Hawaiian new wave and their signature chunky bass lines. Neil Fowler is their lead singer and delivers the line, "Inhale deeply, relax," like a mantra. Rob Jenkins on guitar, Neil Anderson on drums, and Lighton Bloomfield with his bass round out the Sunshine Variety Club. To fit into our Monday category, I'm calling this UK roots music, since their sound is purely English pop. You can visit their MySpace page for more information and downloads of their music in case you need a bit more sunshine variety on a December day.
Well, thanks for that, Carrie. And all you stashers out there, you can get yourself an MP3 download of this tune. It's Sunshine Variety Club with Smoker's Paradise.
Inhale deeply. Relax.
Law420.com. Hello, I'm Russ Belville, Outreach Coordinator for NORML. In my job, I read literally hundreds of headlines each month involving nonviolent, productive citizens whose lives are ripped apart by a marijuana or drug arrest. Many citizens could avoid arrest by refusing police searches and remaining silent, but police are well trained to confuse and intimidate. That's why you have a right to speak to an attorney before answering any police questions. I hope you never need to exercise that right, but if you do, make your first call to the law offices of John C. Lucy IV. John Lucy is an accomplished criminal defense attorney with expertise in Oregon's medical marijuana law. John Lucy understands and respects cannabis and drug consumers of all backgrounds. Call John C. Lucy IV at 503-227-6000 or visit in downtown Portland. Address available at law420.com. That's John C. Lucy IV at 503-227-6000 or visit law420.com today.
I'm Alan St. Pierre, Executive Director of NORML. Have you heard about the new super pot that's supposedly 20 times more potent than your father's Woodstock weed? Don't believe the hype. Marijuana's THC potency has always varied, even in the 60s and 70s. And the drug czar's numbers are full of, well, exaggerations. While no intoxicant is harmless, cannabis is non-toxic and far safer than alcohol. No matter how much you smoke, of whatever potency, you cannot die of a marijuana overdose. Potency is irrelevant anyway. More potent pot just means you smoke less of it, meaning less harmful smoke in your lungs. This is a prime example of harm reduction in action. Besides, the government already allows the prescription of THC pills. Its commercial brand name is Marinol, and it's 100% potent. Meanwhile, the federal government won't allow dying people to use natural marijuana, no matter what the potency? Does this make sense to you? Learn the facts about pot. Visit NORML.org today.
Founded in 1970, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws is the oldest, largest, and most popular lobby of cannabis users in the world. From our Washington, D.C. offices, we lobby our federal government, and from our chapters nationwide, we lobby our state and local governments to end the war on American citizens who choose to use cannabis responsibly. We take you now to our nation's capital for a visit with Executive Director Alan St. Pierre and a look at this month in NORML. For our NORML newsmakers, we're looking back at some of the best stories and interviews of 2009. And of course, the biggest one, or maybe one of the biggest ones, was Michael Phelps getting his picture taken smoking a bong at a South Carolina house party. That elicited this response from Saturday Night Live.
On Thursday, Kellogg's announced that it was dropping its Frosted Flakes endorsement with Michael Phelps, saying his marijuana use is not consistent with the company's image, which brings me to a segment I like to call Really with Seth. Really, Kellogg? Marijuana's not consistent with your image? Because I thought it was totally consistent. You know every one of your mascots is a wild-eyed cartoon character with uncontrollable munchies. I mean, really, Toucan Sam, a frog named Diggum, Snap, Crackle, and Pop. I knew some guys named Snap, Crackle, and Pop, and they were drug dealers. And you also have the Keebler Elves, a bunch of guys who live together in a treehouse and do nothing all day but think of new things to put cheese on. I mean, really, they're stoners. And also, I checked out your website. Did you know you have a recipe for dessert nachos? And that you make cookie straws to drink the leftover milk out of the waffle cereal you also make? Every one of your products sounds like a wish a genie granted at a Fish concert. I mean, really. And USA Swimming, really? You suspended Phelps for 3 months? Really, USA Swimming? Way to sacrifice. Now we won't be able to compete for you in the highly anticipated not the Olympic swimming race. And really, if you want someone to stop smoking weed, don't give them 3 months off. That's what you do if you want someone to finish Call of Duty. I mean, really. Oh, and parents, if your kid says Michael Phelps smokes pot, why can't I? Just say you can, right after you win 12 gold medals for your country. Really. And this is the most important thing. Really, if you're at a party and you see Michael Phelps smoking a bong and your first thought isn't, wow, I get to party with Michael Phelps, and instead you take a picture and sell it to a tabloid, you should take a long look in the mirror because you're a dick. I mean, really.
This has been Really with Seth.
The Phelps story was the talk of the internet and the media for about a month or two following that January 31st photo. And so we discussed the issue with Alan St. Pierre, the executive director of NORML, who also noted an uptick in NORML's donations and website traffic during that same time. Here to comment on this weekend's events is the director of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, Alan St. Pierre in Washington, D.C. Alan, welcome back to the show.
Good day, Russ.
Okay, like I said, kind of set it up for you there. We had three big stories here, and what do you think this kind of says as far as a message to the world out there about athletes and marijuana?
Well, not too surprisingly, anybody who's paid attention or in these last couple of years of being able to Google and put the word marijuana into your search engine, that you would find a week does not go by where a prominent American athlete, let alone a prominent world athlete, I mean, I know we don't care much about cricket or rugby in this country, but boy, do those people get popped in Australia and New Zealand and India just about every other day.
Yeah, we had the sumo wrestlers, the Russians in Japan.
Sumo wrestler. No wonder they're so big.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But yes, athleticism and cannabis, as much as the sponsors and the mainstream media and certainly our government does not want, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, you know, the thing that kind of surprises me about this, how the sports leagues like the NFL will come down so hard on marijuana use, and yet you got these guys on the sidelines that are, you know, running their bodies into each other and suffering concussions, and the team doctors are giving them all sorts of painkillers, and that always seems to be okay. But if they choose the safe alternative, they lose their endorsement contracts.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, NORML advisory member Mark Stepnoski, who went to the Super Bowl 3 times and was picked as one of the top players of all time at his position in the NFL, a center of the Dallas Cowboys, he acknowledged the difficulty of wanting to be honest and transparent about his marijuana use as a professional athlete, and at the same time realizing it was a crushing pressure from the team physicians, from his lawyers, from his agents, from all of the, whether it was a small little car dealership or an endorsement for a food product or shoes. All of these things made it very hard for him to live the honest life he wanted to as a professional athlete, and I can certainly feel the same for Mr. Phelps.
Now, this is with regard to the NFL players. We saw Santonio Holmes get the winning touchdown in last night's Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl previous, Plexico Burress had the winning touchdown, and he'd also had some encounters with law enforcement and marijuana. So with regards to the NFL specifically and just these other sports leagues, what would be, you know, NORML's recommendation on how they could set up a program here or some rules to deal with players' marijuana use without being so punitive about it?
Well, we could begin at the number one concern here, and that is the health of the athlete. So if the person uses marijuana, is it an healthy endeavor? Well, the pretty clear scientific evidence is if you use marijuana in moderation, there is little or no serious consequence on your health. 2, is marijuana a performance-enhancing drug? Well, maybe if you're going to do a food-eating contest, it could well be, but I think we can all acknowledge that when it comes to these sort of peak athletic performances, that marijuana, unlike, say, amphetamines or barbiturates, is not a performance-enhancing drug. So what are we left with? We're left with people like Mr. Phelps and Plexico and Mr. Holmes being literally sacrificed on the altar of marijuana prohibition. If it were not for the prohibition of marijuana, the use of marijuana would be as consequential as their use. I do stress the word use as compared to abuse, because that will land you into the public eye. But the use of marijuana would be just as consequential as their use of alcohol.
Now, last Friday, Steve Bloom and I talked about this just a little bit, about how the NFL doesn't really seem to have a consistent way of dealing with their players that are busted for marijuana. Stars like Holmes and Burress seem to get more of a slap on the wrist, where if you're a second or third stringer, you might, completely lose your job with the team there. And, looking at the Olympic athletes like Michael Phelps, they have more of a strict code. They have the anti-doping agency and so on, which just recently had decided that any athlete who was caught in a situation like Phelps's would be banned for a certain number of years, certainly long enough to preclude Phelps from competing in London in 2012. Do you anticipate that the World Anti-Doping Agency is going to make some sort of give some sort of leeway or way for Phelps to get out from under this because of, naturally the huge interest in him competing in 2012?
I think it's an absolute given in the same way that Obama has had to create, shall we call them, waivers for some of his lobbyists. Yeah. I think in the same way, the agency, the anti-doping agencies and UN and the Olympics all are going to twist and turn on this one and very likely cut him some slack, and maybe, hopefully, with the input of groups like NORML and others and scientists, to keep pushing the idea here that this is not a performance-enhancing drug, and why should be any concern of the Olympics? Because if the Olympics are taking a world view, there are many parts of the world where marijuana use is inconsequential. It is legal. For example, in Alaska, our own state of Alaska, it is legal to consume and to have marijuana. It is not a crime in Mexico and almost all of South and Central America to possess marijuana. Of course, the Netherlands, you can buy marijuana over the counter. In India, the government sells marijuana at holiday time in the form of bong. So the Olympics have tried to take a world view to their credit, but they have also, as you can imagine, strongly deferred and hewed towards America's anti-drugism and anti-marijuanaism and its pro-drug testing. But I think ultimately the Phelps case, unlike the Ross Rebliati case, and I'm so glad that unlike this case, I wasn't getting woken up at 3:30 in the morning from a hysterical BBC reporter calling from Japan wanting to know about marijuana and drug testing, which is what happened when Ross Rebliati had his gold medal taken away as a Canadian snowboarder, but that was the first test case for the Olympic Committee to figure out whether or not, should they really include marijuana as a performance-enhancing drug, and they clearly said, no, we shouldn't.
Yeah, and it seems to me like the bans here at the world and Olympic level are really just a way of enforcing a prohibitionist moralism more than anything else.
They are, and they should be based on science and safety and concern for the athlete. And there's no doubt, and it shouldn't sound too hyperbolic coming from me, that this is just one more example of my favorite 25-cent word from Dr. Lester Grinspoon at Harvard Medical of a case of psychopharmacological McCarthyism.
Now, you mentioned President Obama. Of course, the other story this weekend was how his half-brother George in Kenya got busted with a little bit of marijuana, and I kind of quipped on the Stash blog that George shouldn't hold his breath about his brother mentioning anything about it since it's been 11 days now, and he hasn't mentioned people who were legally using marijuana in Tahoe. So what do you anticipate from the Obama administration regarding this news about his brother or half-brother?
Well, at some point, I imagine they're going to be asked the question or his spokesperson, Mr. Gibbs, is going to be asked at a press conference today or tomorrow about that. It'd be interesting to see what he's going to say. Of course, they've already acknowledged that they barely know each other. They've only met one or two times when Obama's gone there to do research and meet with his family. Now, I should say that I think George Obama is very lucky to be George Obama in Kenya, because since his arrest, I've been doing some research on Kenya's laws and arrest patterns and the way people are treated, and wow, he is very lucky to have gotten out of there within the first 12 hours of being arrested. Kenya sounds like it has extremely harsh laws, and I pulled up some articles where people, there's little or no due process at all, so I'm sure he's very thankful his last name is Obama.
No kidding. Now, one last thing here, Alan. Speaking of that DEA raid, I had been bringing up on the Stash and looking around some other mainstream media places, kind of alternative, I guess, Huffington Post, Alternate, and so on. Do you think the momentum is building here to call Obama on the hypocrisy of his medical marijuana stance in these DEA raids?
Yes, in fact, those stories have now moved outside of what could be described as sort of the internet counterculture, Huffington Post, and moved into the mainstream. I believe there's both Reuters and AP pieces now. I've read them in the Miami Herald and other publications. I believe one of the Oregon papers had it. I always call it Oregonian. I don't know if it had it or not, the Statesman, but it is absolutely now getting around the country in a mainstream way, this notion, and matter of fact, I think the question in the headline is, what is Obama's stance on medical marijuana after California raids? So if the media is paying attention, if they're doing their job, and I say that, laughing here a block from the White House in Washington, D.C., because we probably wouldn't have had 70 years of marijuana prohibition if we had such a lapdog media. But if they were to ask him today, hey, you've got this article going around the country about your boss and this raid, what say you? And one presumes they're either going to say, we inherited that raid, it happened just a few days after we took over the office, and it's not something we're going to move forward with, and that, of course, would make big news. Or they'll say, yeah, that we're just following through, and we're going to continue to raid that, and that, too, would be big news. The question is, will the media ask him the question?
One of the answers, it seems to be that we keep getting back, or the frame at least that we're getting back is, well, we got so many bigger fish to fry, so much more to do, the economy and the wars and the terrorism and the Wall Street and so on. What's your response to that?
Well, it's true they do have big things on their plate. At the same time, if you want to get the little goofy things off your plate readily with a flick of the pen and face no real political consequence whatsoever for it, then do these little things around the edges. And what are those things? One, allow, say, my alma mater, the University of Massachusetts, to grow marijuana and to actually allow it to be used for research. That wouldn't say anything about legalizing or decriminalizing. He could allow so that, again, the federal government does not waste taxpayer dollars raiding buyers and collectives out in California and other states that have medical marijuana. He could, for example, stop the Bush administration's 8-year charge into trying to drug test every child that attends a public school in the United States. All these little things they can tweak and dial back from and exercise out from the current budgets and the current momentum that the Bush administration had been building for 8 years on all these different topics. He could yank the Drug Free America commercials. He could cut the DARE program. All these things could be done with just a flick of the pen.
Alan St. Pierre is the executive director of NORML in Washington, D.C. Check out the website, NORML.org. And the phone number is 866-87-NORML?
888-67-NORML.
888-67-NORML. Give them a call. Check them out on the web and get involved, get educated, get informed, and let's bring an end to this adult marijuana prohibition. Alan, thanks again for joining us here on The Stash.
My pleasure. Thank you, Russ.
You betcha. Thank you for downloading the NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. We are produced by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. Our executive producer is Alan St. Pierre. Our deputy director is Paul Armentano. Our webmaster is Brian Judy. And web production is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. As always, you can catch up on the latest information about marijuana at www.norml.org. And you can interact and download from our Audio Stash blog at stash.norml.org. For everyone here at NORML, I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, hoping all your harvests are bountiful and your encounters with law enforcement are non-existent. We leave you today with the reminder that we're closing out on 2009, and that means it's time for the Stashy Awards, the best and the worst of cannabis in the media as portrayed on the NORML Daily Audio Stash for the past 12 months. We're really looking forward to it. Get your nominations in now at stash.norml.org. It's the very first post on the website. Just click into the comments and read the post and leave your nominations. We'll collect the nominations, and on the weekend of December 19th, We'll put them up as a poll for everyone to vote on at stash.normal.org, and the winners will be announced on our December 31st Normal Show Live special, our 3-hour New Year's Eve coast-to-coast special going from midnight Eastern to midnight Pacific at live.normal.org. Hope you join us there. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.